Welcome to Thursday Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. This week, I'm speaking with Brian Rosen, chairman of Growth Beverage, which owns 4 entities helping innovative brands accelerate through funding, incubation, and points of distribution in 6 states. Brian's father was tuned into the Chicago market before prohibition and was awarded the first alcohol retail license after prohibition ended. These Rosen gentlemen learned and understood how to perfect retail and did so for decades and developed Sam's over time. They encapsulated innovation as part of their growth strategy. They knew if a customer stayed more than 17 minutes, they would add $100 to their cart. They also knew if they could get them to have a glass of wine or two with maybe a cheese plate, they would increase their margins and customers would stay for 38 minutes. Brian, a highly educated individual, grew up running the largest, most innovative retail store in Chicago, the biggest in the country. If you were to put Specs, Total Wine, and a wine bar together, you would get a closer picture of the concept he, his brother, and his father built together. Yes, they were the precursor to your shopping experience as you know it today. Brian then took these skills and applied them to his passion to help build smaller, innovative brands. The business has given him so much, he wants to give back the second half of his career. His skilled team helps brands develop faster with capital, sales, and marketing at all the right times for optimum growth. What Brian and his team are doing fits right in my wheelhouse, and I look forward to watching their continued success. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursday Thursday. This is Jesse Ott, and I have Brian Rosen with us today. Hi, Brian. How are you doing today?
In the flesh.
In the
Jesse,
flesh.
thank you for having me. Yes.
Yes, I'm so excited. I've seen some of your videos and whatnot, so I'm super excited to have you on to talk about all that you're doing. I mentioned to Brian before we started recording, I have such admiration for him and what he's done for our industry and helping the little guys, because that's really what's kind of going to help propel, I think, a lot of our business in the future. It's kind of the, people weren't sitting around on their hands during COVID. They're creating brands so that they could put them in our hands. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
The little guy is the backbone of the whole industry. The little brand, the little supplier, the little anything keeps the whole hospitality industry rolling. And so the big guys don't need any support from anyone. They got it handled. It's the little people that really need the support. So that's kind of which we built our companies.
Yeah, no, it's all in my wheelhouse. Food and beverage innovation. I'm all in. I just absolutely love it. So, Brian, where are you calling from today?
Well, I'm in Chicago. I split time between Chicago and Miami, but I was at a business investors meeting today, and so now I've stepped away from that meeting in suburban Chicago, and I'm ready to talk all about drinks.
Yay! This is my favorite.
Yeah.
So where are you from originally, Brian? Are you from Chicago?
Yeah. So here I'll give you the whole story, right? And it truly is a story. My family was the very first liquor license handed out in Chicago after Prohibition.
The very first? How?
Well, they as my father would say, there were some crooked dealings in the day.
Surprise.
My grandfather, yeah, no shit. No, my grandfather Sam and Al Capone were friendly, and so when liquor licenses were there to be handed out like, Oreos, my grandpa was there to buy. And what that turned into, that one liquor license turned into a saloon, turned into a liquor store, turned into the largest liquor store in Chicago, turned into the largest liquor store in the country.
Wow.
And when I say big, Jesse, I'm talking 33,000 feet was our smallest store. So for the viewers at home, think a small Walmart.
Wow.
And
that's back then.
Yeah, that's back then. We built our first superstore in 96.
Wow.
We built our first superstore in 96. So from there, we began growing these superstores all around the country. And at the end of our run, we were the highest grossing wine spirit shop in America. So back then, there were no big box mass wine stores, spirit stores. We were the very first.
Yeah.
And under one roof, we sold cigars, food, cheeses, fromage, salami, all sorts of gourmet market, books, glassware, and of course, wine, spirits, and everything else. And that became Sam's, and that became the largest in the country in terms of gross sales, number of employees, retailer of the year, 3 times Forbes Best of the Web, once, many, many Market Watch awards. So to say we knew retail, I think would be a slight understatement for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that you had food, cigars, and the beverage side of things, because you have Total, who's obviously all the beverage, and then the cigars, and then you have Specs.
Where do you think they learned it from?
Yeah, exactly. They learned it from the best. I mean, and then you have Specs here, who that has a deli, right?
Yeah, look, we were what I think. So here's credit to my old man, my father. The credit goes here. We were young kids. I went to undergrad at DePaul University in Chicago. I went to graduate school at University of Chicago, and my father was very hands off in terms of what we could and could not do. In a lot of family businesses, they're like, "Hey, kids, you gotta stay in this corner until I pass away, and then you can have my corner." It wasn't like that. My father said, "Hey, you guys are young." When I got in the business, I was 26 years old, full time, and my father said, "Hey, if you've got better ideas than me, let's try them out." And one of the things we did, Jesse, that was so unique in our Highland Park store, and the first in the country, and now it's like commonplace, so I find it quite laughable, to be honest, is we put a bar on the inside of a store.
Nuh-uh.
So
that's nice.
Yeah, fuck yeah,
now
nice.
when Dixie's doing it, I mean, everybody's doing
it. We had tap handles. We had so think about it like this: you have a big box store. We had 5 or 6 or 8 wine tap handles inside a Coravin kind of setup, and then we had the cheese counter, etc. So a customer would come in, they would buy a cheese plate, they would buy 2 glasses of wine, and they would sit there in a lounge type of setting in the middle of a retail store.
Wow.
And what I learned in school, which is now like, it's on the tip of everyone's tongue, is that if a customer spends more than 17 minutes in a retail store, they'll spend $100 more on the cart, on the spend.
Interesting.
So my whole
17 minutes. Wow.
Think about your shopping experience.
Yeah.
I went to Nordstrom's on Sunday. I had to get out of there in 15. Right? It's too much.
Yeah.
So you're in a wine store. You're browsing. People like to look at the labels and do all of those things. Now think about it. We had wine glass holders built into the shopping carts. So it was no extra effort to walk around with a glass of wine. They'd buy their wine for $6, $7, whatever it was back in the day, and they would drink and they would get buzzed and they would spend more. Yep. And they would invariably buy what we had in the Coravins. So not only do we increase the average cart, we increased the gross margin, we sold a couple glasses of wine and maybe a cheese plate, and the customer stayed for 38 minutes. We were the first. We did that. And now you see it everywhere. You see every grocery store in America, every big box one has a test kitchen, has a wine bar, has a cheese thing. I mean, we were the first.
And that was in the 90s?
That was in 96.
Wow. That's so visionary. That's incredible.
Look, I will take the credit if you're giving credit.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But visionary is not, it just seemed like a no-brainer to me. Everyone, it's a whole world of this is how we do it always.
Yeah.
Not this is how it can be done. And those 2 sentences together speak to how we run Growth Beverage now, like how we run the big company now. It's not a lot of focus on this is how we used to do it. It's more focus on this is how it can be done. And that's how all the companies go. So from there, sold that company to a private equity firm in early 2000. And I went on to PricewaterhouseCoopers and I ran the adult beverage division for PwC. I started out as a managing director, then I made partner, and I ran the adult beverage category for North America, Canada, and Mexico.
And what did that involve?
Great question. Not a ton of nothing. I was like the show pony, to be honest. They would drag me out when they wanted, hey, this guy's done it in retail, right? So they would drag me out and say, this is what Pernod Ricard, Diageo, Constellation, all of the Target stores, what have you, 7-Eleven, they would say, this guy's done it in retail. Listen to him. And I was there for a couple of years. I didn't feel like being the show pony. And I left Price and I started Bevstrat, which was my first company. Mm-hmm. That I founded solely, aside from Sam's. grew Bevstrat to a multi-million-dollar sales company, which operated under the premise that distributors aren't going to build your brands.
Right.
And if you're the fifth vodka in the same distributor as Tito's or Kettle One or Ciroc or whatever, if you're in that same world, you're going to need to employ your own salespeople because no one's going to give a shit about you.
That's right.
Right. And so Bevstrat was that. I grew Bevstrat to many millions of dollars, and I sold that to MHW.
Oh, you did? Okay. So when did you start that?
2015.
Okay.
And I sold it in 2019 to MHW. At the same exact time of creating Bevstrat, I created InvestBev.
Okay.
And now InvestBev, which is now right around 300 million in AUM, assets under management. InvestBev is the largest sector-only focused private equity firm in adult beverage. And those two happened in 2015 together. Fast forward to current times, I have raised 4 funds in InvestBev. Our 5th fund just launched this week, actually. So here we are.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a $150 million raise, all for adult beverage. And in that interim, we also founded Algoma Capital, Algoma Cap, we call it. And Algoma Cap is a $100 million separate fund for distilleries and for brand owners who need credit but don't want to give up equity or shouldn't give up equity.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
And then the most exciting thing, really, so you've got Bevstrat, you've got Algoma Capital, you've got InvestBev, and then the most exciting thing is Sprout Beverage, which could be very germane to your listeners. Sprout Beverage is an incubator and accelerator for brands. This week alone, last week, I should say, in Chicago, last Wednesday and Thursday, we had over 13 brands fly to Chicago for a two-day seminar on how to be a better brand. Taught
Excellent.
from myself, the InvestBev team, executives from Molson Coors, executives from Bacardi. So Sprout Beverage now, by November, will have 20 graduates. The graduate on pitch day, which is in November, gets $100,000 from me. And they can use that for growth. They can use it for marketing. And we help them matriculate to the next level. So those are the 4 companies that we have. Those are my businesses. They're all in adult beverage. And they're all exist solely in an ecosystem where a brand can come into our company and stay for 30 years because you've got growth capital, debt capital, sales and marketing, and incubation and acceleration.
And that's technically under the Growth Beverage brand. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So
Growth Beverage is the parent co, and these 4 brands all feed up into growth, which is a double entendre on purpose.
Okay. So walk me through, let's say I own a tequila and I'm looking to, do you work with brands that aren't yet in the US, or do you help them, come to the US, or do you help create brands? Like what's the first place that you start with brands?
Well, that's the best part about the ecosystem, right? Because if you've got brands that aren't in the US yet, they can for sure work for Sprout Beverage. They can get in the Sprout Beverage program, right? We have a lot of brands that are from overseas, mostly Mexico because of mezcal and tequila right now. But there's no reason why it can't be an RTD from France or from Italy. No reason it can't be a winery from Bordeaux or Burgundy or what have you. That's a Sprout Beverage entrance. They would come into the incubator. We would give them all the 3-tier expertise they need. Our estimation I'm 52 years old. Nope, it's true. I'm 50. Thank you for that. A little delayed.
No, you look great. No, I was surprised. You've just accomplished so much already.
Keep it in the podcast. You come over here, and we've estimated that you can make $100,000 in mistakes to get your brand started.
Oh yeah,
wrong
for
lawyer,
sure.
wrong accountant, wrong label guy, wrong cola guy, wrong TTP person, wrong distributor, wrong sales team, wrong marketer, wrong. It's $100,000 and you haven't sold your first bottle yet. So you come over into Sprout and we'll, for, I don't know, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, whatever it is, you will get the $100,000 of mistakes erased and have an immediate head start in the marketplace. Now think about it like this. You're in Sprout, you do really well. You win pitch competition, you win pitch day. Now you've got $100,000 coming back to you in capital and services. And then you get our whole team, which is 20 people strong, working on your brand every day for free. Right?
Wow.
So this is how it works. And so a brand can come to us at really any time.
Okay.
They can come to InvestBev if they're already in existence and they're cash flowing and they're operating company. They can come to InvestBev. Let's say they're a debt opportunity. They want to buy barrels to make their product. They can go to Algoma Cap. If they're an incubator or a startup type brand, they go to Sprout. And if they're a brand that just needs salespeople, they'll go to Bevstrat.
Nice. Okay. So are you looking for brands, or do you have a process that you're looking for brands or a team, or is it sort of people are contacting you and you sort through the brands that you feel like are the most qualified or the ones you think are going to make it versus other ones?
We're always looking, right? If someone's got an idea that I don't know, if someone's got something that's interesting, they can for sure apply online to any one of the websites and submit their brand for consideration. I'm not actively looking because the pipeline is so robust. This business is so unique, and you know this, and I'm guessing your listeners do as well. It's so unique in that you have to spend all this money before you sell your first bottle.
First bottle, yeah.
Right? First bottle, and think about it like this: your first production run has to be 500 cases, so you can get even any kind of scale for your gross margin.
Mm-hmm.
So, the business is not for the faint of heart. So there are plenty of people coming to us. The pipeline is definitely robust because the business is hard. And having grown up in this business, I really feel for every brand owner, every supplier, because the deck is stacked against them the minute you say, hey, I can do this. The deck is stacked against you right away. And so this business has given me so much. I have to give back. I feel the need to give back. And that's what the last half of my career now is giving back.
Yeah, I love that. You always want to find a way. And I hope people feel like it's through this podcast to help encourage other people, or, to tell people's journeys. At least that's my way at this point. You always want to try and give back to the industry that's given you so much that you love and such great people.
And I think also that people are creative by nature. Right? They're creative. They want to create something. So many stories start off that I've heard that are like, hey, my two buddies were in a bar and we said there's got to be a better way. People want to create all the time. In any other industry that I know of, you can do that. You can do it. It's easy. It's a low barrier of entry. Fashion. I mean, Elon Musk, although a billionaire, created a whole car company that's valued more than Ford in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It is the world is ripe for creativity. Yep. The liquor business is hard to execute.
It is. It really is hard because there's just so many layers. Yeah. And I mean, it's really the cost, right? The cost of just, like you said, everything. You can create a brand and you can come up with a strategy, but to be able to know what those steps are from 1 to 10 to actually get your first, in at a distributor. I mean, to your point. So from the distribution standpoint, you have a sales team. And so does your sales team work with the current distribution channels that are out there?
So if you hire Bevstrat so this is what you're really asking. If you hire Bevstrat, we work for the supplier, and there's the difference. If I'm a distributor rep, I've got 1,000 brands I have to sell. And then I've got a manager on top of me who says, hey, rep, you have to sell Kettle, you've got to sell Santa Margarita, you've got to sell Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, and you've got to sell Miller Lite because I need to make my numbers, says the manager. When the supplier hires us, it really is just about what can we do for the brand. And we will go into market, we will take orders, we will submit them through the proper channels, and the distributor distributes the goods. And oftentimes, I should say, distributors want us in the market. Yeah. Because there used to be a dirty secret. Hey, I'm not going to sell this little itty bitty brand. It used to be a dirty secret. Now it's, I'm not going to sell your brand. We'll take you on in distribution and happily take 30 points from you, but you're going to have to pay your own sales team. You're going to have your own depletion allowance. You're going to have to do all of these things because me, Mr. Distributor, have too many brands that matter more.
Right. It's hard. It's a hard situation. But to your point, suppliers, after you get past the top 20, it gets hard after that, I mean, just in terms
I'll give you a stat that's going to ruin your day. The stat is there are 50,000 brands registered for cola. there's 500 that account for repetitive SKU velocity.
Wow.
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 It's just hard. It's a hard business.
It is a hard business. It's really tough.
Yeah.
I've gone through different, parts of the industry wanting to work with a broker and bring in brands and help sell them. And it's just tough. It's just really, 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 really hard. And you got to have some backing in order to get started. And you got to have the right brands
Yeah.
and the right distributors. And yeah, it's
Yep.
tough.
Yep. And like never before has there been, though, the ability for the small brand to compete on the big brand scale. Because of social media, because of the internet, you can reach the same audience that Bethany Frankel can on your Instagram account,
Right.
on your TikTok account. So you now have direct access to the end user, to the consumer, which didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
So while the business is harder than any other business out there, CPG business, the path to market is a little bit easier. Can be.
So when you have a field sales team, are you set up like a traditional supplier would be, like a regional manager, state managers, in market, on premise, off premise?
So in the Bevstrat model, we have full-time representatives in the market we're talking about. They sell for you. They will sample for you. They will do all of those kind of things, and they will work alongside with the distributor. But there's not that whole org chart is baloney that for the distributors use. And I'll tell you something else. COVID did no one any favors, because COVID taught the distributors they are able to have less employees, less salespeople, and still sell as much or not more. If you think about COVID for 1 second, you had an unemployment rate of 17.6% in the height of COVID, and yet liquor sales, and I say liquors, wine, beer, spirit sales, were up 15.6%. I'm sorry, 5.6%. 5.6%. So you had the highest unemployment in U.S. history, yet liquor sales continued to thrive. What it taught distributors was they don't need 100 reps. And if you notice, during COVID, all of them developed their order platforms, their order portals.
Mm-hmm.
So they're driving the retailer and the on-premise and off-premise account to go use the internet to order goods. So there'll be a time for less salespeople coming up, in which Bevstrat will continue to thrive.
And you work across all different distributors in each state then, depending upon which?
We work in 6 key states.
Okay.
Illinois, Florida, California, New York, New Jersey, and Colorado.
Okay.
Generally speaking, 4 of those states are self-distribute states. So you can, where MHW or Park Street operate.
Gotcha. Okay.
You can distribute there, and you don't need to be with a traditional distributor. You can be in with what's called a 3PL in those states. Kind
of like a LibDib situation?
Yeah, LibDib, of which I was an investor in for a hot minute, and I know Cheryl well. Great concept, great idea. So kind of like the LibDib, except for the fact that MHW and Park Street have warehouses, they have delivery trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Huge difference, and you pay for those services. But LibDib is not that.
No. She mentioned, I had her on a podcast earlier in the year, and she said that obviously you have to ship it to a warehouse of some kind before
a dock touch, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know that she's interested in that side of the business at all, or maybe that's a future. I don't know.
No, I was with Cheryl pre-launch. I knew Cheryl from LibDib. Now it really has become the back office for RNDC, right? And so when I talk about distributors learned how to operate with less salespeople during COVID, they all have their platforms. LibDib has created the platform, the kind of the white label for RNDC. Makes perfect sense, and applaud her and all her efforts. She definitely fills the void.
Oh yeah, I thought it was really smart to partner with a big distributor like that. And then once a brand gets a high enough volume, they can switch over to the R&D. I mean, it's a great platform for brands to get going, because what she was explaining is I would first of all, she lost a lot of distributors just because people kept getting bought out over the that time. And the second thing is, she was saying, well, I would go and research my own accounts and and I'd go visit them on my trips to these different cities. So, well, what am I paying it for? And so it just kind of happened out of necessity.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, it is a great platform and will remain a great
Yep.
platform for anyone who wants to discover new and unusual wines, new and unusual spirits. It's really great for that. But at the end of the day, the need for the salesperson will never go away because don't forget, I was a retailer for the first 20 years of my career.
Right.
So I'm not going to get into my store at 8 in the morning. We open at 9, let's say. I'm going to get in my store at 8. I'm going to get the store ready for a day of business. And then I'm not going to go on my iPad and try and find something new and unusual to buy on a website and have it shipped 3 days late. I'm not going to do that. So the salesperson working in conjunction with LibDib is a great move. A salesperson working in conjunction with MHW or Park Street is a great move. A salesperson working in conjunction with Southern, RNDC, Breakthrough, Young's Market, whatever, all a great move because, again, there's 500 products that account for repetitive SKU velocity, and there's 50,000 products registered. How does that work at all?
Right.
Doesn't.
It doesn't. I know. It's so crazy. So have there been any particular mentors? I know you kind of mentioned your dad. He seemed like a pretty great guy, kind of giving you some, creative, leeway on what you're seeing in the market to kind of expand what your store was. Is there anybody else that had a big influence on any of the moves you made or any of the businesses that you created?
It's funny because having the biggest retail store in the country and being the youngest guy in that company, people that are bigger than us now because we're out of the business would come and look at us for guidance. Gary would come all the time, Vaynerchuk. Stu Leonard would come in. The grocery chains, Meijer, Kroger, Mariano's, Safeway, they would all come in and look at what we were doing. And what was interesting to me is I would look at them and say, because I'm a financial person by nature, and I'm a financial person now, having the investment companies.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I would say, I would kind of flip that question and say, we didn't need a lot of help mentoring in retail. What Brian, needed a lot of help with was mentoring in financial acumen, in how to start a private equity firm, how to start a debt fund, how to support a brand with capital, things like that. And I got a lot of that mentoring, a lot of that schooling, if you will, through years and years of peer groups. YPO is one of them that I'm active in still. Tiger 21 is another. EO, Vistage, groups like that teach business skills that are transferable across multiple industries.
So those aren't specific to any industry. No. It's just all like executive level training. Okay, very cool.
And therapy and maturation, because the liquor business, there's only a few guys at the top of the mountain.
Yep.
So it's not who's going to teach. Whereas in the financial services business or in the peer-to-peer learning space, there's dozens and hundreds of groups where people get together and exchange ideas. Yep. And I can bet that if I'm thinking about something, someone else has already made that mistake.
Yep.
So I mean, for sure, right? So when I look at mentoring, that's what I look at. I look at groups of people. They don't have to be in a similar business, but they have to have a similar mindset. And if you surround yourself with those kind of people, you can cut your mistakes down and thus increase your propensity for success.
No, I appreciate you saying that. My mentor, because I was telling him as I'm building my business, I go, one of the hardest things for me to grow and to continue is I'm not getting enough feedback. And he's like, oh, okay, well, here's what I do. I have a group of 8 people or whatever. Yep. That we bounce ideas off each other if we have a thought, or does this look good, or whatever you're doing. And I just thought that was so smart. That's exactly what you're saying, but obviously at a much higher level and a much more organized methodology.
I think the key to feedback for anyone is, are you going to take it, right? And are you going to grow from it?
Right.
And so again, I'm 53. I spent the first 35 years of my life thinking I had all the answers. And I spent the rest from 35 to now. So what's that? 35, 45, 17 years, 18 years. Now I listen more than I talk. And when I began to shift like that, I began to have outsized success for the actual thing that I'm doing.
Interesting. That's very cool. And so outside of that, is there any other resources or anything that you recommend for people to use outside of the mentoring circles that you mentioned?
Well, if it's specific to the wine and spirit space, what I always do, and I still do to this day, is I'll go to a bar and a restaurant and I'll just watch.
Yep.
I'll watch what they're drinking. I'll watch what they're ordering. I'll go to a liquor store and just watch consumer behavior, what they're picking off the top shelf, the bottom shelf. Are they buying more from bins or racks? Is price important? Is store layout important, right? Is shelf set important? Things like that. I just watch. The consumer, and I've said this for years on all of my kind of social, the consumer will always tell you the truth, whether they're doing it on purpose or not. It's up to us as business people, brand owners, distributors, all your listeners. It's up to us to listen.
Yep.
That's it. And listen, read the tea leaves and listen to the rustle. And that's what I've done. That's what I would recommend anyone do that for a practice of how they run their life. Shut up and listen, because the truth, like the X-Files, the truth is out there. The consumer will always tell you the truth, always. And you have to listen.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, because they're the ones picking it up off the shelf every day, ordering online or responding to some social media.
Subtleties, Jesse. It's the subtleties. Like, we've had people come through the incubator and they make a $50, $60, $70 gin, but they make it with a long neck. So it means that the retailer has nowhere to put it.
Yep.
They can't put it on the top. They can't put it on the bottom shelf because there's a shelf on top of it, and they can't put it on the top shelf because it doesn't belong there for price. And so stupid things like that would really be alleviated if you just spent one day in a liquor store and watched. Go to Total Wine, go to Bevmo, go to Specs where you are, and just watch. Just sit there and watch. You'll learn so much. It's so humbling, but it's so rewarding, and you'll be a better brand for it.
Yeah, it's really true. The truth is right before us, and I would say, I guess Specs too, but Total, as big as they are, they turn on a dime. They immediately went to RTDs, and now they're doing low and no elk, and you got to give them credit for being able to kind of turn pretty quickly with the mass scale that they have.
I'll tell you, and I'll tell you. So Bevmo and Total both tried to buy Sam's back in the day, and we turned down offers down from both. And one of the thing about Total that you said they turn on a dime. Total came into our store in Chicago, one of our stores in Chicago, and they're walking through our store. Mm-hmm. Up to the offices where we're going to have this big, high-powered business negotiation. At the time, it was David Trone, who was the founding family. And he knew he was counting the money we were spending on his way up to the offices. He was counting the paper clips, counting the bottles, counting the payroll, everything. They don't miss a beat, Total. Total does not miss a beat. Nope. Super smart, super adaptive. And so if you want to know, and Costco is the same way.
Yes.
I always say too, if you want to know what's next, go look at the center aisle of a Costco liquor department.
Yep.
Don't look anywhere else. They're 6 months ahead, seasonal. You want to know what rosés are going to pop in summer of 24? Go to a Costco in March.
That's
how you see. And those are the brands you buy. It's the biggest liquor retailer in the world, and they know what they're doing more so than you or me or any of the smart wonks out there, for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed we live in, in a small town called Lake Mary, just north of Orlando, part-time, and Dallas part-time. And we have a Costco pretty close to our Dallas house, and then we have another one. And you can really tell the difference in what brands they carry, and like even the quality. It's so different. So I don't know how Costco works. I'm just a consumer. I've never called on them or worked on a team or anything like that. But I found it astonishing, actually. My wife loves Pinot Grigio, and so we took a family trip to Costco. I actually got her converted into a Costco fan. Only took one trip because that's how great it is. But they didn't have any Pinot Grigio, which kind of, I'm like, how do you not? We're in Orlando, Florida. It's summertime. How do you? Maybe it's sold out too. I don't know. It could be that they just sold out.
Well,
but it's just interesting.
Two things. Before you married your wife, you should have made sure she was a Costco member, because for me that's always a deal breaker. That's kind of part one. Yeah, that's part one. I am a Costco fan through and through, not to buy, although I buy plenty, but to walk around and watch. Yeah. I do it by myself. My kids know I do it. Dad's going to Costco to walk the perimeter, they call it, and I do that. But make no mistake, it's the biggest no-brainer in retail is opening up a store next to a Starbucks, right? You know they're going to pull traffic in. The biggest no-brainer in booze is emulate the 200 SKUs that Costco has, right? That will give you a really clear and really good example of how your inventory needs to look. And it's free. You don't need to bring Bain in or McKinsey or Price Waterhouse or Deloitte. You don't need to bring any of them in. Just go to a Costco.
Yeah.
They carry 200. They carry 200 SKUs. Put everyone in because nothing there is by mistake.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And I know that they have their own private label brands too. We've been kind of tasting through some of those.
And they're all good.
Yeah.
And the bottles all look similar to the brand they're copying.
Yeah.
If you look at Casamigos there, it looks exactly the same. If you look at the wine, Santa Margarita Pinot Grigio may not be there, but you can bet there's a bottle that looks just like it there in Pinot Grigio that they're trying to sell.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's really, really true. So outside of kind of what we've already talked about, with some of the pain points in the industry, is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that you're kind of seeing? Post-COVID's a bit of a different world. Like you mentioned, there's not as many feet on the street and the distributors. I don't know if that's to your point of a financial decision, or if they can't keep people because people are shifting around and doing different things, or maybe a combination of both. But is there, outside of, the competition, because there's just so much, is there anything else that you're seeing out there that you want to kind of talk about?
No, look, I'm a big fan of the no and low movement. InvestBev just made $1 million investment into 10-to-1 Rum, which is a partnership with Diageo and Pronghorn.
Okay.
We're in that. We're in Can, which is a cannabis beverage. It may not be available in Texas, but is so yummy. And it's THC and CBD infused beverages. We're in Speakeasy. We're in Reserve Bar. So if you look at our investing portfolio, you can kind of see a little bit where the market's going. Tequila, fine, but overdone. Vodka, dead. Gin, gonna pop. Rum, gonna pop. Gin has been popping in the UK, by the way, forever.
Yep.
Forever. But somehow it can't catch fire here.
I love gin. Rum, I can't wait.
Yeah, but as bourbon gets more expensive, I love gin too, by the way. As bourbon gets more expensive and Irish whiskey get more expensive, rum will be a nice accretive drink to have with a rocks glass and a little and a 1 ounce pour or 2 ounce pour of rum in a big cube. That's going to replace other kind of rocks glass drinks because it's cheaper and it's more palatable. Yeah. Those are all benefits of what's happening in the market. But again, if you are looking at what's now, you're always going to miss what's next.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to look one eye now, one eye next. And next is low and no alc, to your point. I'm not a big fan of the alternative movement. So one drink with alcohol, one drink without, because that whole movement, and then one drink with, one drink without, it extends the sessionable activity. Not a fan of that because the other side of that is retailers have to carry both and on-premise accounts have to carry both. That may not happen.
Right.
But I do like that Dry January is not just a month; it's a movement.
It's a movement.
But
100%.
But it's less than 1% of the total consumption public.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't that big. I mean, the UK, from learning from my people on my podcast, have really been into that movement a lot sooner than we have been over here. And even other people that I've asked about it on the podcast, whether they're in the restaurant industry or sommelier or whatever, they're like, no, that's not what we do. It's, and that's their choice. I mean, it's still gonna take some time. But one of the things that I've learned with Claire Warner, she was on a few weeks ago, she talked about how much people are leaving dollars on the table by not having that option on their menus. So instead of getting water or Coke, they're going to buy a beer, right, or they're going to buy a mixed cocktail, and they're going to make $10 on that person, right?
Yep. Claire's smart and Claire's correct. Here's the issue though, and then people get blinded by statistics. If you sell one more non-alc drink tomorrow than today, that's 100% improvement. So you can realistically say, I'm 100% up in my non-alc, but you sold one drink.
Right.
So the sample size is so small.
Mm-hmm.
the percent people are using percentages to talk about the category. It's kind of bullshit, right? If you said I sold 10 cases today and I sold 10,000 tomorrow, that's a real number. But if you say I sold 10 cases today and 15 cases tomorrow, 50%. But it's only 5 cases.
Yeah, it's definitely small for sure. Yeah,
it's real small. But people get all excited about, oh, it's up 20% year over year. Big deal.
Yeah, I don't even know what that base is, just to be honest.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I just think it's a movement, kind of to what you were talking about earlier, January, dry January. It's really more of a movement. I think from Claire's point of view, she's about the health of the people in the industry, and longevity and that kind of thing, which I think is really, really great. I've never heard of anybody standing up for that community, that part of our business. I'm sure there's plenty, but I know her now. But I feel like, with the newer generations coming up, drinking less, it's going to be, I don't think it's a fad. I think it's going to, in my opinion, I feel like it's just going to slowly creep up and kind of be a part of our culture.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a segment for sure. The same way that limoncello is a segment. It's
people drink that.
Well, they do. It's a small piece, and it's an important part for health. And as people get, it's funny. There's the number one trending show right now on Netflix is this Blue Zone show, which is all about these 5 places in the world that where people live to be 100 years old or older.
My wife has watched this. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, it's great. And I've watched it, and I've said I'm not doing any of these things. I hope I don't die.
You don't want purple sweet potatoes?
No, but by the way, I would love them. I would love them if you're offering, but I don't.
Where do you get them? I don't.
At the Purple Whole Foods, and but my point is that the guy who did the show, he picked these 5 places out, and he said these are the common threads, the through line through all 5 places, and one of them was wine. Wine, red wine, or white wine in Greece, or low sulfate wine, or what have you. Naturally occurring wine, no pesticides. The natural process of making wine. So here is a whole show, and there's a movement right now on this, right, about living to 100 plus. Mm-hmm. And the one common thread, there are many common threads, but the one common thread for our concern is they're all drinking 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day. And if that's really the barometer, I should live to 1,000.
Right? Yeah, I'm right behind you.
Yeah. So my point is this: that like no and low is great.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone in my circle, at least, who wants hey, it tastes just like X, but has no alcohol.
Yeah.
Because to a lot of people, like, just drink water, and then when you're ready to drink with alcohol, go ahead. But again, it's a personal preference, and I award people who live that lifestyle. It's just not. I don't think it's a measurable thing in the short term.
Yeah, I agree. My experience is I had the co-founders of Athletic Brewing on, and so I had to go and try it. They told me that they had their Upside Down was what do you call it? Process to remove gluten, whatever that process is. And I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna go try it. And so I bought some, and we went to my mother-in-law's pool. We'll go there sometimes and have dinner and get in their pool. And it was really nice just having, for beer, it's for me, no matter what, it's like 1 or 2 tops, but it was really kind of nice just to sip on a really nice beer. It's hot, and you just want something cold, and then, have a cocktail later or something like that. So, cause you're driving back and forth or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. I wouldn't have thought of me being somebody that would participate as much in it either. And I was actually kind of presently, surprised. And now it's going to be a part of, I'm going to have it around.
Yeah. Well, look, we again, going back to InvestBev, we see 10 or 15 brands a week that are looking for capital. And the percentage that are non-alc has gone up every week for 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
So more and more people are making non-alc beer, wine, RTDs, premix, what have you. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something that's happening in the drinks business. Is it a forever? Yes. Is it a big segment? No. Will it ever be a big segment? Probably not.
Depends.
But it will be. It will have its sliver.
Yep.
It will have its sliver. And listen, props to the people who started it all. The Sharps and the O'Douls of the world.
Yeah. The only
the
choice
Sutter
for
home,
many decades.
horrible. Sutter home free. Horrible. Now people are there's an artistry to making non-alc. And don't forget also that weed drinks, cannabis drinks, plays a role in this too.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like our brand Can is a replacement also for people that don't want to get drunk or don't want a hangover, but want to celebrate the moment. With the THC and CBD kind of blend, the world is open to them too now. And as more and more states become legal, Florida, you need a medical card, but soon we're going to be federally regulated, I guess, in the next 5 years, I'm hoping.
I hope
and this
so.
will be a natural thing. Yeah, me too. And even where it's not federally legal, you've got the hemp derivative, which is selling off the shelf like crazy. For instance, our canned drink in Minnesota is trending on Nielsen, and it's hemp derived as opposed to THC derived. Right? So the market is evolving, even if the regulations are not.
Well, isn't there certain degrees of pot that are legal? Like I know in Texas you can get Delta 8, I think Delta 8, 7, 8.
Delta 9, yeah.
And then Florida's the same way. Are they able to make it? Is it legal for them to use, Delta 8 or Delta 9?
Well, we do in Minnesota.
Okay.
But in Illinois, where recreational marijuana is legal, it's 5% THC or 3% THC and 2% CBD, what have you.
Right.
In California, where there are no rules, it is 5% THC, and the tall boys are 5% THC, et cetera, et cetera. So where it's not legal yet, they use the Delta derivative.
Okay.
Where it is legal, it's the THC piece.
So do you feel with the THC and CBDs, do you feel like they're people that are drinking them are already people that are already in the know, or are you converting new people over?
That's a great question. I don't know that answer. I know that as I get older, it's harder for me to drink red wine.
Yep.
I don't feel as good. I get stuffy in the nose during the night. I get hot, all of that.
Yep.
No trouble having a couple drinks of cannabis at all.
Right.
And I get,
you don't feel bad either.
Don't feel bad. And I get up the next morning still at 5 o'clock, and I'm at the gym by 5:30. And so I think that part and parcel to this non-alc conversation, it's not about today always. It's about how do you feel tomorrow. And so non-alc, low alc works for tomorrow, meaning you can drink as much as you want tonight, and tomorrow is still a regular day. THC can, for instance, is the same. You can have a couple cans, and you can get up at 5 in the morning and still make it to the gym. No hangover, no weight gain to speak of, no caloric intake like you would with having 3 or 4 beers.
Yep.
No bloat. And it pairs with food really well. So the American consumer, and in the general sense, the global consumer, is evolving.
100%.
And no longer is cool for the day when you had one option in beer, wine, and spirit. There's as many different types of people there are in the world. There are options for them to drink and to smoke and to drink THC. And so the suppliers are responding.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I've tried some of the CBDs in the past, and for me, I can't have a drink and smoke or even do a gummy. Like I can't do both. I immediately throw up. I don't know why I can't handle it. So
that's your problem.
Yeah, it's my problem. It's totally my problem. And I raised my hand.
You need to work on that.
I need to go to the get in shape, I guess. But,
that's right. You need to train.
But I'm certainly open to learning more about it and tasting it as long as it as it gains more traction on the shelf, so you can get it and you can try it. Because
and look, I mean, and dispensaries are like Apple stores, in a lot of cities.
Yes,
they're beautiful.
They are. They're fun.
They're beautiful. They're well lit. They've got great displays on the wall.
Yeah.
They got great POS and POP. They're retail juggernauts, and it's no longer like the day where you're buying weed in someone's garage, and you guys are changing cash for an eighth or whatever. I'm going back to my when I was 17 years old, but now it is a legal experience that is perfectly okay to have a sessionable activity around. And so, again, I think that the drinks universe, all encompassing, is evolving, and there's room for everything. And it's up to the supplier to adapt. It's up for the distributor to make room. It's up for the distributor to take a risk. It's up for the consumer to want.
Right.
And when you put all that together, you've got a brand that can thrive.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. Well said, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go on past that. That could be the close.
I don't know. I would love to keep asking more questions. I do have maybe two more,
Yeah, of course.
and okay. So, what's your outlook? Is there anything that you see that's changing? We've kind of talked about CBD, THC, low and no. You kind of did, I guess, give us a little bit about. You think rum's coming, gin's coming, which are both very exciting for me because I love them both.
Yeah.
I think they've been the redheaded stepchild long enough. I think it's time. I would love to see. I had another guest on, Chris Scott. He's a wine guy, but he loves gin, and he was talking about
Yeah.
over there that he's like they're going too crazy. There's too many flavors, or they're going past the original intent of gin. Are you?
So in the UK, gin is today where vodka was in the US 10 years ago.
Really? Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it means, like, if you look at like Pinnacle, for instance, in vodka, whipped cream flavor, strawberry shortcake flavor, all these flavors. And what it really comes down to, and your listeners should absolutely know this when they go to their local store, it's a land grab, and nothing to do with the brand at all. They're making line extensions to take real estate off the shelf for competing brands.
Makes sense.
And so that's why Stoli, Smirnoff, all of them have multiple flavors. Absolute at one time had 10 flavors. Citron and regular being the main gig, but they had papar, and they had grape, and they had vanilla, and they had all of these different flavors of Absolute. Yet 98% of the SKU selling was regular Absolute.
Yeah.
So what's happening in gin in the UK is exactly what happened in vodka in the US years ago.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I didn't know that. It seems like the UK is quite a different market than what we have over here.
It is, but think about it. I'm not talking about the consumer at all. I'm talking about the distributor and the supplier's real estate grab, right?
Yep.
This is a business. And if I put 10 line extensions on the shelf, right, that means that's 9 places that my competitor can't get.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hopefully that'll evolve.
But I'm a gin guy too. Yeah. I've been a gin guy since 22 years old, 23 years old, when I saw a guy who was much cooler than me and still is much cooler than me.
I doubt that.
Order a Bombay Sapphire and tonic. Did this, and I'm like, that guy's cool. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna order that drink. And I've never, besides from switching Hendrix for Sapphire, I've never wavered from that drink ever.
I just had one a couple of days ago. We went to Fort Worth to the Bass Hall. Lannis Morsette's Jagged Little Pill is on tour. So yeah, it was so refreshing. It was so lovely.
Oh yeah, it's a great summer drink. It's a great winter drink. I mean, in the summer you can say it's refreshing. In the winter you can say that gin with all the juniper has this Christmassy feel, right?
Yeah, true.
And very aromatic. So they've made a product that plays, across all 4 seasons.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm excited about rum too. I love rum. Probably a little too much. Being in Florida, it seems like the go-to, when you're in the pool.
10 to 1 was our first rum investment out of our Fund 3. And Mark Farrell is the founder there. He's a very, very smart guy. Diageo came in, as I mentioned. Pronghorn came in. Mm-hmm. And this guy is originally from the islands. So he's got a good sense of that island vibe, and he's got a good sense of how to create this thing. And it's an aged, beautiful rum at a time when people want something other than bourbon and whiskey. So I think he's going to hit that plateau right on, and we're very excited to be in the rum business now.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think you're spot on with the high-end rums. You're seeing a lot of them. I think even in Texas, but in Florida for sure, where you just we had company over the summer. My best friend and her husband, who loves rum, he found a bottle, and he's just sipping it, and it's it's great. I love that. I mean, I think people have maybe a little bit of palate fatigue on bourbon. It's never going away. It's always going to be big, but to try something different, maybe a little softer, I guess you could say, with the
Softer is right, and the cube cuts it, right? The ice cuts it a little
yep.
bit, and it's a little bit sweet. So you can appeal to the salty and sweet kind of demographic of someone's palate, and all of those things together, in addition to the rising price of other commodities, are going to move the consumer towards rum. We hope. We really hope.
I hope so too. I think so. I think it's got room, right? My first experience with rum, and I don't know if you're a Jimmy Buffett fan, but I was.
May he rest in peace.
Yes, may he rest in peace. And the person that I was devastated. I was so upset. The person that got me started on Buffett was my cousin Randy Wilkin, who just passed, 68 years old this last weekend. Very sad.
Oh,
But it's just it's sad. But anyway, Buffett juice. So we had rum and juice, and Buffett, we called it Buffett juice, and we'd hang out by the pool and listen to Jimmy Buffett. So anyway, it's kind of cool.
And one more thing to think about is that we're not talking about Captain Morgan, right?
No.
Although it's a staple.
Right.
The consumer in America is really making this move towards premiumization. And they're making a move towards, they're defining who they are by what they put in their body.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why Sweet Greens, the salad chain, is so popular. That's why cold pressed juice is so popular. People define their sense of self, their sense of id, by what they put inside their body. So they're going to put a premium rum in there because it says they're in the know. It says they're successful. It says money's no object. It says they're sophisticated. So our rum game is playing to the exact movement and time of where the U.S. consumer is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Quick question. I'm kind of digging my heels into sake. We went to Japan this summer, and I feel, Asahi is now building a brewery here in the U.S. stateside in New York. And are you seeing any brands come to you guys, or are you seeing any trends on that side of the business?
Jesse, you're reading my bio. Years ago, Bevstrat worked for Hirosaki. And it was a New York brand. It's in all the states now. And their goal at Hirosaki was to be the sake for everyone. And they were the first brand I ever met that was a sake brand that said, I don't want to be in Japanese restaurants.
Right.
What they said is, I want to be everywhere. So we're going to create a drink menu around everywhere, around sakatini. So a martini with sake, less hangover, less calories, what have you. So again, I think it's a movement. I think there's place for sake.
Mm-hmm.
Same way there's place for baijiu, right? The number one spirit globally. But 1%, one incremental increase over one, which is 100%, is still 2.
Right.
So again, I default always to, there's opportunities in the wine, beer, and spirit space for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick a small market to begin with, like sake, right? Like Malort, like Jägermeister, what have you. You pick these small markets where only a small percentage of the consumer is going to enjoy drinking this on a regular basis, then you are limiting your upside quite a bit. And so we don't necessarily like to invest in things like that because total addressable market is a huge thing for investment firms.
Right.
And if your total addressable market is the Japanese restaurant community, which is wonderful, and then high-end hotels who make sakatinis, you're leaving out the rest of Earth.
Right.
And so for those reasons, sake will continue to grow or slowly keep steady, but it's never going to be, a top 10 Nielsen trending. It just won't. It's impossible. Statistically, it's impossible.
Yeah, and I don't know if the consumers here want that. I just feel like there's a whole educational component that's missing that I think could be a little intimidating, like wine is, with the varietals and whatnot, that could maybe break down some of those barriers. I feel like it's kind of coming, and so for me, kind of wanting to lean in on sake and low and no just to see where it goes, just because I feel like it's something. Yes, it's this very, very, very small base. But what I found in talking to different people about in the sake world is they're saying, like, how Italian restaurants were really popular, they're popping up everywhere. 2 different people have told me that Japanese restaurants are now the new Italian restaurants. And I found that very interesting. And I don't have any facts or anything to back that up. It's just their
Is that good or
opinions.
bad though? Are you implying that Japanese restaurants are becoming more common and more accepted, or not as, it used to be that Chinese, for instance, or were for Chinese, you know what I mean? They serve local flavors,
Right.
right? Are you saying that the Japanese restaurant is become a generalist like an Italian restaurant would be?
No, I think there's more interest in that segment of food, in that type of environment. I think there's like there was, with Italian food in the past. Like I don't.
Yeah, look, my opinion about sake, baijiu, um, other things that they need to get a push on premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that the supplier has got to have a bartender or a series of bartenders that are in their corner to recommend, because someone's going to come into a beautiful restaurant in downtown Manhattan and say, what do you have that's new in the martini world? And some bartender's got to say, I have an idea, consumer. Let's have a martini with sake. So you've got all these different people that have to be in your corner to make it go.
Yeah.
That's a challenging route to market. That's the same thing with people that the brand, some of the brands we have in our company, where they say, hey, the bartender just has to recommend this. Okay. So that means you have to incentivize the bartender, you have to train the bartender, you have to have a mixology program, you have to have a drink menu, and then the consumer has got to ask for it so it gets recommended.
Yep.
And then, there's more, and then you realize and then you're recommending that the bartender is your advocate when the bartender's got 25 things in their well and 50 drinks in the back bar. It's just a hard road.
It is.
We like, at least in our companies, we like frictionless transactions. And so should your supplier listeners. You want to have the route to market with the least amount of friction. And so when you come to market with an orange flavored tequila made by a one-armed psychopath, right? there's only a few people that want that in the world. That's a tough thing to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I'm all for the market growing. I happen to enjoy sake quite a bit. I enjoy cold sake quite a bit. I do not love hot sake. I think that's amateur hour. Right. Cold sake is where it's at. But I'm one of 1 billion and 6 billion, and the market has got to kind of come up to meet the need as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just something I've been, hearing on the podcast about. There's not a lot of specialists out there. They're even in Mexico. It's coming up. They're like, well, we need to fly in a specialist to teach, blah, blah, blah. So I just feel like I'm kind of hearing it here and there, not really necessarily asking the question. So I just thought I'd see in your experience on your side of the business, what kind of you guys are seeing.
Yeah, we see everything.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We see everything. And this is where it kind of goes back to the top of the show. We work for small brands at the end of the day. That's my passion. And it's heartbreaking to look in the eye of someone who leveraged their house or cashed in a 401k to create a product that no one wants. And the one advice I would give your listeners as we kind of wind to the end here is, if you make a product that you yourself love, or your Aunt Mary drinks, or your wife Cindy, or your husband Steve, and that's their favorite, you're not making a product for everyone. You're making a product for someone.
Yep.
Right. And so your audience will be restricted to one. So when I look at entrepreneurs and brand entrepreneurs or suppliers, founders, be generalists, get share of mind, get credibility, get share of wallet.
Yep.
And then you can start messing around with flavors and different profiles and age statements and all of those things. But you need to create something that the world wants in the general sense, and then you can expand upon that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really good advice. I think that's, it's kind of when you think about a buyer, well, I don't like that. Well, maybe your audience does, or maybe your customers do, it's a hard thing to, and a lot of them obviously use Nielsen and volume data.
Yeah, but new brand's never going to break. A new brand will never break if you're only using Nielsen or IRI data or IWSR. What the brand owner should do is they should go sample 100 customers off-site, get 100 people that like their brand, have 100 people call the buyer at said store and say,
That's right.
and say, do you have X? And then go in the next day and say, I'm selling X.
Right.
That's what you do. That's
Yeah.
how you get into a store. And then once you get that placement, you service the shit out of that store. You do tastings, you do activations, you make sure everyone knows who you are. And then you go to the stores around that store and you say, hey, I'm doing really well over here at this grocery store, at this wine shop. You should buy a case too. And you rinse and repeat and repeat. And it's exactly how it goes. And it's not pretty, and it's not quick,
Yep.
and it's not cheap, but it's proven and it works.
Yeah. You have to kind of create your own little community.
Yep.
Building communities.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So this has been awesome. Brian, what do you like to do when you're not working? Do you have any hobbies or trips that you like to take or?
No, I like to travel. Unfortunately, it's always around work, right? But
yeah, that's okay. There's good places to go.
I like to travel. I like to speak at the shows. I've got family that we all go together at different places around the world, and I like to be a little bit physically fit and golf and run and all of those kind of things. But the beverage business has given me so much.
Yeah,
it's given me so much, and it's my turn to give back. And so, by having these companies, by doing what we do, by investing capital, by training founders, all of those things is my way as I wind, as I'm the back nine of my life, if you will. Hopefully not so soon. I'm on the first hole. Maybe fine. I'm on the 10th hole of 18.
There you go.
That does not include the bar at the end. So I'm on the 10th hole of the 19-hole course.
There you go.
I want to give back to the community. And so what I do for fun is I help brands. And that to me is fun and rewarding and fulfilling. And that's where I'll kind of end my days there.
No, I love it. I mean, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
Sounds like a Hallmark card, but yes.
Yeah, I'm sure I stole it, ripped it off from somewhere.
Oh, for sure you did. You didn't. That's old.
Yeah.
That one's old as hell.
But I have found that the last year, when you get into your element of what you really love and enjoy, it is waking up and wanting, winding down the weekend to Monday is a different feeling.
Yeah, add value to someone else's life, and you will add value to your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brian, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your time. You're doing amazing things, and thank goodness that our industry has someone like you that you can help all these brands, because education is so key, especially a lot of these people that are creating these brands that don't have a background in it or don't even understand our 3-tiered system. They're coming from a different country. So, thank you so much for everything you're doing for all of them and for all of us in the industry. So hats off to you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed this bit of time with you today.
Thank you. Me too. Alrighty. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.